Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, we are back with another tier list, and we are talking about the best dragon decks of all time in Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, that's pretty much it. This is technically not every single one of them, but it's just kind of like going over the dragon-style archetypes. Now, notably, I don't know why this is in here. I don't know why Drytron's it. I guess this could be Earth's Arctic. Yeah, we'll consider it Earth's Arctic. Notably, this also doesn't include just dragon or like anything like that. It's just kind of like dragon style archetypes. I didn't make this tier list. I never do. That's not true. I do sometimes. But yeah, overall, we're just gonna go through and then rank them from best of all time to wings, please. So there you go. Starting off with Red Dragon Archfiend, I'm honestly going to put this in Rogue tier. It has received some support that's actually put it out of just like unplayable, and the Resonators are actually really good synchro monsters. So yeah, there's that. And if we're considering Duel Links, which I'm not, but if we were to consider Duel Links, a lot of these would change and become significantly higher. But like overall, just a solid deck. It's not insane, but like in terms of dragon decks or like dragon style decks of all time, it's very good. Tenpai, I think, has to be at least considered for best of all time. This might change, but it might not. Tenpai, how do I put this? Tenpai is one of the few decks that allowed anything to go second within modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And that ideally wanted to go second. On top of that, it is one of the strongest combos of all time, being able to put out, how much is it? Like 16,000 damage in a single turn. And a bunch of stuff like that just allow it to really keep up with even some of the strongest decks of all time. So yeah, all things considered, I think Tenpai is genuinely up there. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Next up, we have Light and Darkness Dragon deck. If we're just considering Light and Darkness Dragon, this could be Rogue, but if we're considering the deck as a whole, it's pretty bad. But just Light and Darkness Dragon in and of itself is a crazy card and is extremely powerful, and saw a lot of play in older style Yu-Gi-Oh! Even back in like Dragon Ruler format, it was extremely powerful because like you special summon 2 Dragon Rulers, you tribute summon the big guy, and then your opponent can't do anything for that turn, and then you kill him on the crackback because the Dragon Rulers are insane. So yeah, I'm going to put it in Rogue because of Light and Darkness Dragon being so prevalent in a lot of those earlier formats. Speaking of which, yeah, Dragon Rulers are probably the... I don't think they're the best Dragon deck of all time, and we'll get to the other one later, but they're definitely up there. And if we're considering like... Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, overall, insanely strong deck. In one of the most dominant eras of Yu-Gi-Oh! Having multiple different decks or like ban lists that it survived and ended up still being competent or playable. Like there's so much about Dragon Ruler that is insane. Yeah, easily top tier. Blue Eyes. Blue Eyes is great. I hate to say it. Technically speaking, historically speaking, it was dominant. Not dominant. Scratch what I just said. It's been Rogue tier for ages. It's been a playable deck for a really long time. However, most importantly, recently it received more support, pushing it to the 3rd best deck currently in the OCG with Primite and the new Structure deck. Fantastic. It's once again playable, making it significantly better than what it was previously, and keeping up again with some of the more powerful decks of all time. And just like keeping up in general with the current metagame is quite impressive. On top of that, in 2016, it won Worlds, being probably the best deck in the room, maybe not, but arguably the best deck in the room, even going so far as to be both of the decks in the finals. So overall, it's had 2 stints of high playability, and is arguably was arguably one of the best decks multiple times. Right? Which is why I'm just like, yeah, I gotta put it in great. As much as I do not like the way that Blue Eyes has played up until the most recent OCG style, with like the Primite cards and stuff like that, which is super sick. Up until then, it's been really boring, but it's a great deck. Armed Dragon, I think, is just wings play. This deck is garbage. It does not do nothing. If we're actually talking about the Thunder Armed Dragons as well as the actual Armed Dragons, this deck, nothing. It's had no results. It's not even rogue. It's not even really playable. It's barely playable. So this is specifically Cyber Dark, and I don't see a Cyber Dragon on here, which would be more so what I'm thinking of with Cyber Dragon. Also, why is Crystal Beast on here? We're going to ignore Crystal Beast. Because it's like 2 dragons. I'm going to put this one in Rogue. Because Cyber Dragons are really like the staple of Rogue, and they have had stints of playability due to Cyber Infinity and a few instances here or there. But for the most part, yeah, they're okay. Next up, we have Rose Dragon. Do I put this one in Rogue as well? The reason I say this is because in Halqifibrax format... No, that was because Halq was absolutely insane. You're right. I was going to say in Halqifibrax format, you could go like Adventure, Special Summon the level 7, Normal Summon a level 3 Rose Dragon, and then sync off for Baron to bring back a guy to then make Halq under Baron. But I think that was more so just because of Halq being absolutely insane, and not necessarily the individual cards, nor anything that they actually brought to the table. So for the most part, I'm just going to say not great, pretty terrible, holistically. Next up we have Tenyi, which I'm going to include as Tenyi Sword Soul, which I'm just going to put up here in great. Yeah, they've been good. They're pretty much rogue at this point, just been power crept basically. But yeah, for the most part, Sword Soul was very, very strong, and they're okay. Alongside the Tenyis as well, they're solid. And they had that one really powerful era where they were arguably the best deck. It was either them, Tri-Brigade, or Branded at the time. And like it kind of depended on what people were feeling at the time, basically. But yeah, pretty much, yeah, they were great. Malefic. Let's move on. Zark. Let's move on. Odd Eyes. No. Speedroid, I will put into Rogue at the very least. I think it's Speed... No, I'm lying to you. Nope. I'm lying. Firewall. Oh, Firewall. Firewall. Oh, they had Crystal Wing. No. Never mind. You're right. You're right. Crystal Wing was pretty good. I'm going to put Firewall in Rogue. The Firewall Dragon archetype, or more specifically Firewall Dragon specifically, had pre-errata was an FTK enabler through and through, which is not really too surprising, but it's something of note. And then it got an errata, and now it's fine, as well as all of the rest of the firewalls as well, so it's not really that big of a deal. Next up, we have Bystials. I think Bystials are the single most powerful archetype, maybe behind tier, of all time. Maybe it's like the Ishizu card, it's like tier, Ishizu cards, then probably Bystials. The Bystials are hand traps that also have a extremely solid game plan and can be splashed into just about any archetype pretty effectively, making them one of the most efficient engines in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Magnamut by itself is an insanely busted card that has also boosted the power level of Tenpai just due to the nature of Magnamut working the way that it does. So all things considered, I genuinely think the Bystials were... I don't know if they're necessarily more influential, but they're more impactful and have had more of a long-lasting staying power than I think even the Dragon Rulers, which is saying something. But like, genuinely speaking, I don't think anything is going to realistically power creep the Bystials unless Lights and Darks just all of a sudden become terrible. And like, banishing them at any point just isn't good, which is extremely unlikely. So for the most part, I genuinely think that these are just like one of the best archetypes of all time, period. So yeah, Bystials. Next up we have the Branded archetype, which again, solid, great. I feel like I don't need to mention this. This has been meta several times. It's been a top deck several times. It's been extremely strong. It has great game plan, etc. I'm not going to explain more than that. Predaplants, they exist. They're mostly super poly targets, so that's pretty much it. I think this is Galaxy Eyes. I could be wrong, but I think this is Galaxy Eyes. They're fine. This is Ashened, if I recall correctly, which is terrible. Is this Hieratic? No, this is Hieratic. Is this Heraldric? No, that one makes... Oh, this is Dragoonity, right? Surely this is Dragoonity. Dragoonity, I'm actually going to put in pilot dependent. I think Dragoonity has a lot of potential and is extremely powerful just across the board. So yeah, I'm going to put it in pilot dependent. I think that it has a lot of potential. It is extremely strong. It does a lot of things similar to like Dragon Link, or at least it can, right? But it can end on some like very difficult to out boards and some very like sticky monsters, which I think is very interesting. I don't think it's insane. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Hieratics, on the other hand, are... Hieratics have some of the greatest monsters in Atomb and Seal. Seal is probably the single best dragon card of all time. No, Magnamode is. But Seal is close. Heavenly Sphere... Seal of the Heavenly Spheres or something along those lines, Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres, whatever it's called, is probably one of the greatest extra deck monsters ever, and is genuinely extremely powerful and extremely consistent. So, all in all, genuinely speaking, I think Hieratics are an easy include and great. Also, Atomb is insane, which is something of note. The rest of the Hieratics as well are not terrible. It's not like it's just carried by these two cards. No, the rest of the Hieratics have been rogue at time, and like have seen stints of playability across a lot of different metas. So like overall, very solid. Red Eyes, hate to say it, they're not very good. They haven't been very good. They've never really been good. I wish I could tell you what this is. I have no idea. Stardust. They're fine. Stardust Dragon was insane in old school Yu-Gi-Oh! However, with that being said, it definitely has fallen off quite substantially. And even the newer cards and like the newer support cards and all of that stuff that are technically also Stardust aren't exactly exceptional. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's worth considering like as like a great deck. It's just a solid rogue archetype deck thing. Thunder Dragon. I think Thunder Dragon is... I'm going to put this one in pilot dependent. When Thunder Dragon was meta, it really depended on how good you were at playing Thunder Dragon in order to like beat or be beaten, right? So I really do think that this is one of the stronger archetypes holistically, but I do think it is more of a like how good you were with the deck mattered a lot more. So there's that. True Draco. Or, more specifically, True King as well. True King of All Calamities is a card that does exist and immediately makes me want to put this in best of all time, because simply that card by itself was so insane. On top of that, Masterpiece, Lithazogym, Lithogasm, and I don't know how to say the card's name, and the other one, the other True Draco. Masterpiece and Lithazogym, and there's another one that I'm thinking of that I cannot remember, and I just had it. True King of all Calamities, True Draco, something or other. Anyway, basically all of True Draco as well as the True Kings were so insanely impactful on release, and then on top of that have continued to be impactful. Masterpiece and True King of all Calamities were banned for quite some time, right? Even True King to this day is still banned. VFD is still banned. So it's just, yeah, I don't... definitely better than Tenpai, not better than Dragon Rulers. There you go. Next up we have Rockets. I think Rockets also have to go up here, mostly because of how incredibly important they are to Dragon Link. If we're talking specifically about Dragon Link, Rockets are the cornerstone to that deck. Right? Without Striker Dragon, without Borrelend, without the Rockets themselves, without Quick Launch, etc., and without the field spell to get additional bodies onto the field, this archetype, this strategy, doesn't really have as much to do. Or more specifically, isn't able to do as much as specifically the extra deck monsters would have you do, right? Sure, Elpie and Agripane and all of these other cards are insane, but without the cornerstone that is the Rocket monsters, they're not really actually doing all that much, which is one of the things that makes Rockets so insanely cool. On top of that, they have some of the most insanely powerful boss monsters of all time, with Boral End, with Borreload Savage Dragon, Boral Sword, Boral Guard. Like, every single one of the Boral monsters is just like another nightmare for the opponent to deal with. So, yeah, they're insane. And they really are the cornerstone and backbone to Dragon Link as a whole. So there you go. Dragon Main are fine. They're a solid rogue deck. They've been playable. Okay, now they're pretty bad, but they're fine. Ice Barrier. Ice Barrier is interesting. Ice Barrier only recently got support. However, up until that recent support, they were hot doo-doo garbage. Except for their extra deck monsters, which were so obscenely busted throughout the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Multiple of them have received erratas, and multiple of them have been limited and or banned. I feel like this is a just example of great. Just due to the nature of the extra deck monsters, I do want to put them in great. Because they're such insanely powerful cards, especially in older formats, that it's like, yes, sure, all of the Ice Barrier cards basically do nothing. But those extra deck monsters were so stable in every other deck that it's just, yeah, of course. Earth's Arctic suck. And then these two I don't. Well, this one, it's like one card. And then this one I don't know. This, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, here's the list. Notably, the Guard Dragons aren't on here. I don't know if this is a Guard Dragon. I don't think it is. But the Guard Dragons would also be best of all time. They'd probably be right behind the Bystials. But yeah, that's pretty much it. All things considered, yeah, I really like a lot of the Dragon decks, right? Bystials, I think, are really super cool. I think the Dragon Rulers, for their time, were super sick. I really enjoy the way that Dragon Link works as a whole. But then you also have Tenpai, which no one likes. I genuinely know so few people who actually like Tenpai. So there's that. But anyway, I'm going to call it quits there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy it. If you did, like us very much, so appreciate it. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye. Shout out to the Frost Guard, my members. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I hope you enjoy the content.